Still writing long Rust loops for every collection task? In this video, you will learn 12 iterator patterns that solve real problems with cleaner, more idiomatic code. Every example is short, practical, and ready to use in your next Rust project. Well, start with iterator pipelines that clean up and reshape data without taking ownership of the original collection. An admin dashboard should show customers who can currently use the product. Let's create a few users, filter by the active flag, then run the script and check which names reach the terminal. Let's break down why this works. Iter gives us read-only references, filter removes Bob because his flag is false, and map narrows each remaining user down to a name. Now, here's the best practice. Use iter when you only need to inspect data, because it avoids moving records out of the collection. Reach for into iter only when transferring ownership is actually part of the job. Imported product names are rarely clean enough to store as is. Let's use map to trim each value and lowercase it, then run the script to see the normalized collection. Let's break down the result. Every original string becomes one new string, so the number of products stays the same while their formatting becomes consistent. Now, here's the best practice. Keep a map closure focused on a small, obvious transformation like trimming and lowercasing. When validation grows more complex, move it into a named function so the pipeline stays readable. Search indexes should not contain blank records from incomplete content. Let's discard blank titles before normalizing the real ones, then run the script and inspect the generated entries. Let's break down why the output has only 3 entries. The 2 blank titles stop at filter, so map only does lowercase conversion for titles that can actually be searched. Now here's the best practice. Put cheap filters before transformations that allocate memory or do heavier work. This ordering prevents invalid records from consuming work they do not need. Next, use iterators to turn many business records into one useful answer, from a cart subtotal to the most expensive deployment. A cart subtotal comes from several line items, each with its own quantity and price. Let's map every item to its line total in cents, sum the values, then run the script to verify the formatted subtotal. Let's break down the calculation. Map turns each structured record into a number, and sum reduces all of those numbers into one subtotal of 6,497 cents. Now, here's the best practice. Store money in integer minor units such as cents because integer arithmetic avoids floating point rounding surprises. Format the value for display only at the edge of your application. Cost reviews need a quick way to identify the deployment worth investigating first. Let's use max by key to scan these records, then run the script and see which environment has the highest monthly cost. Let's break down why we get the production record instead of only a number. Max by key compares the cost field, but it returns a reference to the full deployment so we can print both its environment and price. Now here's the best practice. Use max by key or min by key when you need one extreme record with a simple comparison key. Sorting the entire collection does more work and changes ordering when all you need is a single answer. Next, we will turn repeated application events into a compact summary that is easy to scan during an incident. During incident triage, repeated service names are much more useful as counts than as a long raw list. Let's fold these log events into a hash map. Increment the counter for each service, then run the script and inspect the stable summary. Let's break down why this works. The hash map travels through every iteration. An entry either finds the current count or inserts 0 before we add one. Sorting only affects presentation, so the count logic stays simple. Now, the best practice is to use fold when your accumulator needs custom update logic, because it keeps the aggregation in one readable pipeline. Sort hash map output whenever a demo, test, or report needs a stable order. These next patterns connect related data and join sequential sources without building unnecessary intermediate collections. When a CSV row arrives, its values are not meaningful until they are paired with headers. Let's use zip to connect each field name to its value, then run the code and read the assignments. Let's break down why this works. Zip takes the first header with the first value, then continues in lockstep through both arrays. The resulting tuples keep every field assignment explicit and easy to validate. Now, the best practice is to validate lengths before zip when a missing CSV value should fail validation. Zip quietly ends at the shorter iterator, which is convenient only when truncated data is acceptable. API pagination often gives us several small pages when the application needs one ordered stream of records. Let's chain 2 pages of user IDs, collect the combined values, and run the result. Let's break down the order we see. Chain exhausts the first page before moving to the second page, so the API order is preserved. Because we iterate by reference, neither source page needs to be cloned as a collection. Now, the best practice is to use chain for sources that are already sequential, because it keeps the pipeline direct and allocation light. If the final records must be globally sorted or deduplicated, add dedicated merge logic instead. Finally, we will handle imperfect input deliberately, first by failing fast, then by retaining good records while making bad ones visible. Configuration ports often arrive as strings, but the application needs valid unsigned numbers before it can start safely. Let's parse a valid list and an invalid list with the same iterator pattern, then run both cases. Let's break down the two outcomes. The valid strings become a vector of U116 ports, while the invalid string makes the whole collection return an error. That behavior prevents the application from starting with incomplete required configuration. Now, the best practice is to collect into result whenever every parsed value is required, because it preserves the failure instead of hiding it. Only choose a partial success pipeline when the product explicitly allows skipped data. Partner imports can contain a few corrupted customer IDs, but one bad row should not always block every valid record. Let's inspect parse errors, keep successful IDs with filter map, and run the import summary. Let's break down this pipeline. Map error runs only for failed parses, so every rejected row is visible in the output. Result OK turns successful results into values and failures into none, which filter map skips. Now, the best practice is to log or count discarded errors whenever filter map drops records, because partial imports still need operational visibility. Use this pattern when partial success is intentional and the rejected rows can be reviewed later. Let's finish with two performance-focused iterator patterns: controlled batching for external work, and lazy pipelines for efficient log analysis. When database updates or API calls arrive in a large list, sending everything at once can create oversized transactions and painful retries. Let's split 10 job IDs into groups of 3 with chunks, then run the script and watch each batch being processed. Chunks gives us each group as a slice, while enumerate lets us display a friendly batch number. Let's break down why this output works. Chunks create slices of up to 3 IDs, so the first 3 batches are full and the final slice contains only 10. This keeps the original vector intact and avoids creating a separate vector for every group. For production, the best approach is to choose the batch size from the limits of the system receiving the work. Check database parameter limits, API quotas, memory pressure, and how expensive a retry would be. Smaller batches reduce the blast radius of a failure, while larger batches can reduce overhead. Large audit logs are a perfect reason to avoid building temporary collections you do not need. Well, create filter and map adapters with visible logging. Show that the pipeline does no per event work yet. Then call count to execute it. The first message appears before any filter or map output, proving that the adapters are lazy. Let's break down why the log lines appear in this order. Count is the terminal operation, so it starts pulling events through the pipeline one at a time. Every event is checked by filter, but map runs only for the 2 events that pass the security check. For production, the best approach is to keep this pipeline lazy until you truly need stored results. Avoid calling collect into a vec between every transformation, because that allocates memory and processes data earlier than necessary. Collect at a clear boundary, or use a terminal operation like count, find, any, or fold when a collection is not needed. You now have 12 Rust iterator patterns to replace repetitive loops and work with data more confidently. Like and subscribe for more practical Rust examples, and tell me in the comments which Rust topic you want to build next.